Hello, hello! You are live with me, Deirdre Reardon Hall, author of young adult and women's fiction, and I am going to be going live in 1 second with Cheyenne Young, also an author, and we were having a few technical difficulties earlier, but hopefully this is take 2. We're going to give it a shot, and hopefully be able to see in the frame. But we are here to talk to you about, hey Cassie, can you see me?
I see
you. There you are. Yay!
Yay!
Hello. Okay. Awesome. Okay.
Thanks for joining back, Cassie.
Yes. Thank you guys for being patient with our. It's pretty cool that we can talk live to each other in this way. I mean, I get annoyed with technology when it doesn't work perfectly, but
I was watching Outlander last night, and I might be one of the last people to actually watch that show. But they needed to get a message to someone, so they're in the year 1743, and she's like, how do we tell him? And the guy was like, well, it's not like words will float through the air. And she goes, not yet, at least. And it was so funny because I was like, that's my biggest nightmare. I could not survive back in a time without all this technology, even though the technology drives me completely insane.
Yeah. I like doing a little break from it every once in a while, over the holidays, just setting the phone aside and living a little bit more instead of being like this all the time. But anyway, I want to talk about Outlander, but first I just want to say welcome to Writers Uncut. For those of you who don't usually join us, thank you for being here. We are 2 young adult authors, and we are hybrid, which means we publish both, or we have published both traditionally and self-publishing, indie publishing. And we are here today to answer questions and talk to you all about writing, publishing, promoting, marketing, and we'll get to that. But I want to get back to Outlander because I think I emailed you or texted you or something the other day, and I'm like, do I need to watch this show? And you know me,
well,
I don't watch too many shows, so you need to answer that.
Also, real quick, if you have any questions about writing or publishing or anything throughout the whole show, pop them in the comment box and we'll answer them. Secondly, Outlander, I'm really torn on it because, it's been around a long time. That's a series of several books. It's almost like Game of Thrones for women. It's like they're huge books and very wildly, hugely popular. And I've had so many people tell me to read them. And last year when I had my broken ankle, I did a lot of reading. And I read the first book and I wasn't 100% in love. There's a lot of things that I really liked about it, but I wasn't just head over heels obsessed like everyone else seems to be. I was like, am I broken? Why don't I love this? So I haven't read any more of the books, but then I realized there's a TV show. There's already 4 seasons out or something. So I just started watching the TV show and I'm really liking that a lot.
Okay.
And it's the kind of show you can't watch with kids in the room because it's a Starz cable show. So you got to pause it every time someone starts ripping their clothes off. So those kind of shows, we'll just segue here. I can't stand those types of shows. We do not need to see intimate, detailed sex scenes on television. It's pointless. It's just like a fight scene to me, which I think I've mentioned on here before. When movies have fight scenes, I get bored. It's I don't care. I know the hero's going to win. Who cares? Why are we taking so long? But if you can get over all of that, it's a good show. It's fun. And she time travels, and I'm basically watching it to find out what happens with the time traveling, if she's going to ever go back to her time or not. Yeah. So I would tell you to watch it, but I would also tell you to put it at the back of your list because I know that I have demanded that you watch a lot of shows, and you never get around to them because you don't watch much TV. So put it at the bottom of your list.
So is it grisly and gory or mostly romance, on the highway?
It's 90% romance, 5% hardcore sex scenes, and a couple of percent grisly. There's just people get wounded and stuff, so it's not too grisly. No, I just meant it's a female written massive series of books that people are completely obsessed with.
Okay.
So, and I just couldn't really, and even in the books, there's graphic rape scenes and stuff, and it's the plot of the story is so interesting, and I love it, but I'm skimming through all these super detailed, nasty scenes that nobody should want to read. I don't understand why that's in there. So it's one of those, I have to, and it's funny because when I started watching it on TV, my husband was like, isn't that that book you kept complaining about last year? And I was like, yes, it is. Don't judge me. I'm going to watch the show. So, and he's actually watched it with me. So he kind of got sucked into it too. The show's really good. I would watch the show. I wouldn't I can't recommend the book to people that don't like reading that type of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. There's an audience for it, obviously, but you know what I like, and so yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
good to know. Outlander, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of books, though, I'm just going to add this, and then let's jump into our topic today.
Okay.
Last week, you recommended "Save the Cat Writes a Novel" by, is it Jennifer Brody?
Jessica Brody.
Jessica Brody. I read the sample on Amazon, and I immediately purchased it. Yes, it's exactly what I need in my life right now. Can you? Am I like frozen?
You're good.
Okay.
You're good.
I got a text. And yeah, the paper version is cheaper than the Kindle version on Amazon for whatever reason right now. And I know you were recommending it. I am on board. So there was some fiction there for you at the beginning of our broadcast here, and now some nonfiction, which actually is a great segue into our topic today. Because I was thinking a little bit about it earlier, and I realized that, oops, I dropped a thing of confetti. I wrote a book about book promotion and marketing, interestingly. So do you want to say the question and we will get started answering it?
Yes. The question is something I invented myself. It's called...
Oh, I thought someone asked it.
No, so someone actually messaged me on Twitter, and I've actually had this happen a lot because I maybe subconsciously did it, but as I was preparing for my book to release last October,
Yeah.
I was tweeting about all the things I was doing for marketing. And I've had several people message me and say, hey, I'm following your line of advice and I'm doing what you did for marketing. Could you give me some tips, you know? And so I had someone message me the other day saying, asking me about my postcard thing because they wanted to send out postcards because they had seen me do it on Twitter. And I was like, this would be a great topic for the show, is to talk about marketing a traditionally published book, because it's a very different beast from a self-published book. And I kind of recently just went through that, so I can kind of share what I've done, because I found it really exciting that people were taking what I did and copying it, because it's like, I'm kind of making this up, guys. I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm happy to share my advice and things that I've learned along the way. So
love it. That's great. And so for those of you who are just joining us, if you have any questions, we will try to answer them. Pop them in the comment box. And if we don't get to them for some reason today, we will do it in a future live. But I want to say that I think the first and most important thing is to distinguish the difference between marketing and promoting. And I want to hear about all of your tactics, but I'm gonna start with that, if that's okay. And I'm actually gonna read from my book. So, because I would use the words interchangeably, and I still do. I still do, yeah. But there's a difference. There is a distinction. So I'm just gonna just read it, if that's okay. So marketing is directly communicating with consumers. Advertising in media such as blogs, print, radio, and podcasts. It involves exposure and getting the cover of your book in front of as many eyes as possible, along with familiarizing people with your name and books. It's often paid placement. In marketing, a service is provided for a fee, so a budget is usually necessary. Whereas publicity, or like the promotion piece, like you might have a publicist, that kind of thing, means leveraging connections, pitching for press and media coverage, and scoring interviews. This often requires savvy and helps if you know influencers. There's no guarantee of placement when it comes to publicity. For instance, if an editor at a magazine likes your book, they may run a piece on it, but if something else comes across their desk that's more suitable for the issue, they might pull your piece from before press time. So I went on to write this, and this is kind of my line of thinking, and I'm just gonna add it. So for my purposes, book promotion is marketing and publicity combined, and more. The and more is whatever you want it to be that supports and provides active engagement with your work, and it's about sharing what you love with people who might love it too. So there you have it.
I love that. So I actually had a list of notes taken, and then my computer decided to do that thing where it forces an update on you. So we're just going to wing it. I'm going to start with my postcard idea.
Yes.
So I'm hesitant to bring something in the screen because my camera refocuses. I had Kristen Ray design me these postcards. She's amazing. You could also design them yourself or get another designer. But what it is I ordered 100 of these postcards, and actually this is an old one, guys, so ignore this. This has the blurb right here, but I ordered 100 postcards with just the tagline a little blurb by CC Hunter, and then my social media website and the book's ISBN, which is super important because bookstores need that. And this space I left blank. And so I hand wrote a little message that said, if I was sending it to someone in Texas, I said, I'm a local Texas author and I have a book releasing on October 3rd, and I would love it if you would consider it for your store. If I didn't live in, if it wasn't in Texas, I just wrote, I'm a young adult author and I have a book releasing, and I hope you'll consider it for your store. So I wrote that message so many times, and it was painful and it was not fun, but I kind of just did it in my spare time, while watching TV or whatever. And I went to indiebound.org, which is the website that brings all the indie bookstores together. Because if your book is traditionally published, if Barnes & Noble is going to carry it, they already know about it and they're already going to carry it, and it's most likely that they will. Yeah. So I knew that my book was going to every Barnes & Noble and every, what's chain. That bookstore? Yeah, chain. There you go. Yeah. So, and all the major chains, I already knew it was going to. But there are a ton of indie bookstores in the country, and indie bookstores have the person that runs it or owns it or whatever that's deciding which books to stock. And there are so many books released every month and year. It's incredible, especially in my genre of young adult. And you're most likely, if you're not a hugely known name with a big marketing budget, you're most likely they're going to skip over your book. So I went to indiebound.org.
Sorry.
Okay, I was going to say, you froze. You're back. So a lot of bookstores that come up on IndieBound are used, so they don't want anything to do with you because they just deal in used books. So I had to click on every single link and look at every single bookstore website and find bookstores that sold new books and that sold young adult books and that would be appropriate, because some college bookstores pop up, or stores that are just historical books only type thing, that wouldn't be interested in young adult. So I kind of had to do a little research, and I wrote down all of their addresses, and I sent out 100 postcards to 100 indie bookstores that sell new books. And it got a little tricky once I was at around 85, because there's not that many indie bookstores in the country, which is sad, but I was able to find all 100. And I actually had a few people email me, which means they went to my website and looked me up and contacted me saying they got my postcard and they're going to be happy to stock my book. And I didn't hear from many people, just a few, but I like to think that all the bookstores got it, and then they could at least look at it and decide, and now it's at least on their radar, and my book's not just some list at the bottom of a gigantic list of new books that are coming out, which I think it'd be at the bottom because my last name's Young, which is a curse. So anyway, that was what I did, and I found it to be really fun, and it was really exciting because we are trying to reach as many people possible. And when someone replies back to you and you realized you reached someone, and now that bookstore is going to order a few copies, and before they didn't know who I was, that's just really exciting, and that made it completely worth it to me. So Cassie said anything in Connecticut. I don't know. You'd have to look. I cannot remember. I addressed 100 postcards. I don't remember the names of any of them. Most likely, yeah, but it's indiebound.org, I believe is the website, or just look for IndieBound. And they have a link at the top of the page that says store locator, and you can just type your zip code, and a bunch of stuff comes up. And I also learned that Half Price Books will also sell new books. I did not know that.
Oh.
Did you? Yeah, because they're a chain, and they do used books, but they also stock new books. So you can, but there's a lot of them because they're a huge chain. So I just sent out a few postcards to the ones in my area, because I've read that bookstores are way more likely to stock you if you're local to them. So.
A couple things I want to add to that. What I love about it is, well, first of all, postcard stamps are cheaper than regular stamps. Save your receipts for tax time. But also, I really like the nature. I did this too with actually 2 of my books. This is old, and I did the same thing. I wrote a note, and I really like how it has even though it's not an in-person contact, it has that more personalized touch, whether or not, the book buyer or the YA person gets the postcard, someone sees this, and there's a kind of a line of thought in marketing that it takes like 6 touches or 6 times someone sees your thing before they're like, okay, yeah, maybe I want to find out more. And now they're saying, now that we're in the digital age and marketing is more done online, they're saying it's like doubled or up to 14 or something. But I really like this. This adds like a personal, tactile, physical thing, which I think just shows that you care and that you're invested. And, you know, if they want to feature you or, you know, I don't know, do something, especially if you're local, like it's more likely to happen, I think. It just sort of opens the door for that. So there's a lot of really great, you know, paper ideas, including bookmarks, which.
Yay! I was thinking my bookmarks are way across the room. I can't go get them.
And then I have one other, actually, that I'm just going to show really quick. Well, stickers. I don't know if you have all this stuff at your fingertips, but these are some of your things. And the last one, which is my absolute favorite, and I don't really, this is just more for fun, but these are a few more of like the physical paper ideas. Like, here we go, confetti.
Confetti. Yes, you can go to the confettibar.com and you can get custom bookfetti made. She makes confetti that's colored themed to your book, and then tiny little book covers.
Do you recognize
and the title of your book will be confetti.
Not focusing,
yeah, you can't. That's my book cover, and it's teensy tiny, and it's so cute. So and cute. I bought it for the Breakup Support Group, and I bought it for The Last Wish with Sasha Cade, and I love it. And I think I'm going to keep buying bookfetti for every book I have, even though I don't use it much. Like, I thought about sprinkling it on tables when I do book signings and stuff, but then I have to clean it up, so I haven't really used it that much. But so a lot of the swag stuff you're saying, I think a lot of authors are going to make the swag anyway, because that's just what you do. So when you want to market with it, and again, all of my knowledge comes from young adults, but if you write young adult, it's a really good idea to take a stack of bookmarks down to the libraries. Actually, that would work for any genre, but down to school libraries, junior high and high school. I already have a reputation with a lot of my local schools because I'm a substitute teacher, so I already knew the librarians. But if you don't, I would suggest emailing them or calling them and asking and say, you know, my book is appropriate, age appropriate, because I think that's the only thing. Most of them don't care because they stock Sarah Moss's books there, so they really don't care which books they support in the school library. Some people are worried about that, and they've asked, like, well, if there's a cuss word in my book, will a school take it? Yes, they will. Schools have Outlander in them. My local schools have Outlander in them, yes.
Well,
so
you guys are a little wild. Just kidding.
I was going to say, you might want to check. It might be dependent on your school's district, but call them, email them, and say, can I drop off some bookmarks? Because every school library has a stack of free bookmarks that are usually some ugly, you know, ugly, crappy little baby thing with like Big Bird on it or something. And the junior high and high school kids don't want them. Yeah. So drop off your bookmarks there and ask permission first. But a lot of people have said, well, how do you do that? If you go to the school's main website, they have contact numbers. Especially my district has it. You can just search who you want. You can search by name or like math teacher, library, whatever, and you'll find somebody's name and phone number, or name, phone number, and email address. So that's a great way to use your bookmarks. Leave them around places. People will notice them. People will realize that your book exists. And then I would also highly, highly recommend for a traditionally published book doing a pre-order incentive, which I know we talked about in a different episode, so I won't go into huge detail, but it's basically you set up a little online form. I used Google Forms. That's what most people use. Put it on your website. And everyone that pre-orders your book, you give them some free stuff, free swag, fancy gifts. You can even do, most people do a grand giveaway. So out of everyone that pre-orders, one person will win a cool fancy prize, which it actually took me 3 times to give away my grand prize because the first 2 people never replied to me. So it's like, you bought my book and then you didn't check your email because you won the grand prize. So anyway, yeah, so I recommend doing that for sure because I got a ton of pre-orders from people that I didn't know, which was really exciting because you already know that your friends are going to buy your book, and a pre-order incentive will kind of win people over that were considering it.
And all that swag can go into the, you know, into that too. You can kind of create, you did a great job creating like a little I don't know what to call it, but a variety of things that pertain to your book, but that were unique and interesting and that people would like, and really showcase the cover, which again, come back to that whole thing. And that's why I like the bookmarks, why I like the confetti. Like, it is swag, but it also shows the book itself, which, like, the more people see it, the more recognition you get. And in a way, I feel like it becomes more legitimate. Obviously, it's legitimate on its own, but like the more frequent like the frequent views, and I don't know, just the more like it's in the mix, I feel like I don't know, the more people are apt to buy it, because there's like a whole psychology behind purchases, aside from just being like, oh, that sounds interesting, or I like the cover. It's like people want to feel like it's a real. Were you gonna say something? Yeah.
The Curl Prince by Holly Black. This book has been out a while. Well, it's okay. It came out last year. Never mind. Or maybe 2017. This is an example of that. I saw this book so many times because it's not in a genre that I read. I don't really care for fantasy books at all. And it was one of those books that was everywhere. I kept seeing it everywhere. And it probably took a good year for me to be like, you know what, forget it. I'm going to try this book. I've seen it everywhere. I have to know what it's about. And I'm completely obsessed with it. It was so good. This is the copy I'm sending you because I have two copies.
Thank you.
And the second book came out yesterday, which I had to stop reading so we could do this. So you're welcome for the sacrifice I made for you guys today. But yeah, and that's a direct result, and it's happened to me a lot, of me seeing something so many times online through marketing and publicity and promotion that I was like, you know what, I'm going to try it out. So it does work. And even if it doesn't, it's better than not trying, because like I said, there are so many books that come out every month, every year. There's so many books that come out. And if you want yours to be seen, you might as well be trying to get it out there. So you never know. And you might touch one person who likes it so much, they tell people who tell people who tell people, and then you've just got 20 sales that you wouldn't have had. Right. So those are my main...
Oh, go ahead. I was just saying, there's another great segue. We're kind of like tag teaming here. I was going to say, and I know you've done this, and I think it really, like, we can talk about it, but reaching out to bloggers, bookstagrammers, and that kind of thing, in terms of that, like, there's a better word for it, but like when, say you have a plumber and he does a great job, and you refer him to your neighbor who needs plumbing done. The same idea in the book world is like, oh, I read this book, and you're like, going on and on about the new Holly Black book, and I'm like, oh, like, should I read that? Like, I've seen the cover, I've seen it, but like, what do you think? And so we can kind of generate this a little bit of a buzz and a little bit of a word of mouth exchange with our books too, by reaching out to people who are influencers on social media or bloggers. I think it's changed.
I'm so torn on that, because I want to tell you, in my personal opinion, it's a complete waste of time.
Yeah.
But that's just something that I actually learned in the last 6 months or so.
Well, that's and my books came out 2 years ago, and it was actually, with the first book, it was great. With the second,
it used to be very beneficial. Yeah. And now I feel like more recently, because what sucks is the bloggers and the Instagrammers that are very influential and very big names don't want anything to do with you. They will come to you. I have had some really mean replies when I've in a polite way, tried to reach out to these people. And it's like, I've offered to send them my book, and they have shut me down very rudely and said, no, they only seek out books that they want. And a lot of the big influencers are on publishers' distribution lists, so they already get all the top name arcs, and they don't want anything to do with you. So if you're not popular enough, they do not want anything to do with you. And then I had a few of them refer me to, there are services you can pay for, $275 plus the cost of shipping your own book to like 20 different bloggers, and they will post about your book. And I was like, I'd rather spend that money buying swag that I'm sending out to libraries and stuff. So it really is your mileage may vary type of thing, because like, I feel like bloggers were, and they're still good at getting the word out about books, but they used to be really receptive to authors contacting them. And now the biggest, most popular ones are not. And there's still a ton of smaller bloggers that might be excited or happy to help you out, but they have such a small reach, it doesn't, you know.
That's
So,
here, but I mean, I kind of knew that, but it's disappointing to hear that you got like crummy
yeah, well, because for
responses.
Sasha, I mean, I spent hours researching, and it was really disappointing because I contacted people that I've been following and liking and commenting on for years. And it's like, I'm not some fly-by-night author that's, you know, begging you to promote my books. Like, we have a rapport online. And I
Yeah.
was just straight shut down. Like, I had to delete some of the messages. They were so mean. They really hurt my feelings. It's kind of like, no, I only accept books from publishers. And part of me
Yeah.
wonders if maybe they've been inundated with indie authors,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's the bad thing about indie publishing is that somewhere someone has told indie authors you need to contact a bunch of bloggers.
Yeah.
And I think they've got overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of shutting everyone down. And because we're
Yeah.
both on a Facebook group called the Writing Gals, and we have seen there's so many new people that join. And the first thing they say is, okay, I just wrote my first book and I'm contacting 100 bloggers. And I'm kind of like, oh, don't do that. You're the reason bloggers
Yeah.
don't like us anymore.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of people join. Hey, Matt. This is a conversation about books, so you might be bored, but that's my husband's best friend. We have a bunch of comments. What have people said? Cassie said, I found it made no difference.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think the answer is to do it selectively. Like if you do have a rapport, and you know, I mean, that stinks if they're like jerks to you, of course. But I think to do it selectively and be discerning, and you know, if you have a bunch of arcs, it's better than them sitting in your closet. Obviously. But
Well, if you have a bunch of arcs, like one thing I found really helpful is solicit it like put yourself out there. I made a post. If you're a blogger and you'd like an arc, let me know.
oh, I like
And
that.
then the people that are receptive can come to you. Because when like and also maybe don't aim so high, because I aimed for a lot of the bigger, more popular bloggers and bookstagrammers, and they shut me down so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So you can ask people to come to you, and that helps a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say I found Twitter giveaways for arcs to be way more successful than Instagram giveaways. I think people go to Twitter for giveaways more. So that's a great way to spread the word, is to give away an arc like every few weeks. And make the giveaway last for a week and make them retweet and follow to enter, because I got tons of retweets and follows on that. So that was great because that was more people seeing my book. So that's an option. Cassie said, Cassie said, I've had people, stupid comment keeps going. I've had people approach me and ask to review my book for a price. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's so disheartening, because I feel like over the years, bloggers realize they have all the power and they can make a business out of this. And I also think, and I've mentioned it before, authors are too eager to spend money. And people take advantage of that. There's a lot of people that will start up a service offering to do something if you pay them for it. And that service is not going to make you any money. You're just wasting your money. So you need to be really careful with your money. And I would rather spend my money on swag and physical items that I can send out and give away to promote my book than to give somebody $50 to read my book. You know, like that's not worth it.
Don't pay for it. I want to say though, it can feel very like, it can feel like sort of overwhelming, and you're like lost in the, you know, in the chaos of like all the options and the things that no longer work or you're hoping they work. And you know, each book is different, so keep that in mind. Each audience is different. I think it's really important to drill down and know who your readership is and where they're hanging out. So like Twitter for the giveaways might be great. You know, Instagram is more like Bookstagram with like artistic photos of books. Facebook is like people just they just want to read. I think they're like dedicated readers. A lot of times they're older, but we all read YA, so you know there's nothing wrong with that. But I think asking yourself some important questions before you dive into all the things or feeling overwhelmed and not doing anything is really important. So where is your readership or your audience? Like who specifically do you want to have your book in your hand, or like who is the best fit for it? Because there's a big spread demographically. And then also you think about your budget and how much time you have, you know, time-wise and financially. And the other thing is goals, I always come back to that. Like, what do I want out of this? Do I just want to kind of like do a push for my book and hope for the best? Do I want to strategize and really implement some specific things and have like, you know, big name influencers or whatever? I'm trying to think of an example. You know, get a hold of my book. Do I want to do more like the indie side with like brick and mortar bookstores, librarians, in public libraries, school libraries? There's like all these different facets that you can kind of leverage and sort of see where you want to devote your energy and what would be the best fit for your specific book. And so that's sort of like a starting point, I would say. And then, you know, have all the fun with the swag and write 100 postcards and do all the things. So I
Well,
just
see,
wanted
it
to
is
kind of,
in my experience, sending 100 postcards to 100 indie bookstores is just much more valuable than sending 100 emails to 100 bloggers. And really, if you look online, blogging is dying. It was very big for very long, but now it's dying, and people are not getting their information from blogs anymore. They're getting it from social media.
social media.
So I would just say, especially for a traditional book, do not waste your time contacting bloggers, because I don't feel that it's worth it at all. My publisher actually did a blog tour for my book, and I clicked on a few of the posts, and there's like no comments. Like nobody's looking, nobody cares. They care more about social media. So I would also really highly recommend that you spend your money where it counts, and don't waste your money on these services, because I think so many authors are just so desperate. We're all desperate to get our book seen because it's so hard to be seen. And so many authors fall to the trap of, I'm going to sign up for every single promotion I can find. I'm going to pay every person that will take my money who says they're going to promote my book. And guess what? They're not. It's not going to do any help, especially if it's on a blog. So if your book's traditionally published, it will be on NetGalley or Edelweiss. Do you know how to pronounce that?
I think
Edelweiss?
it's Edelweiss, I think.
Yeah, something like that. Your book will be getting trade reviews, and your publisher will handle that. And I would not waste your time trying to solicit reviews from bloggers. Your time can be better spent elsewhere. Cassie just said, what about Bargain Booksy? Since we're talking about traditional books, I say absolutely not. But also for indie books, no. Don't waste your money on Bargain Booksy. Every single sales website except for BookBub is a complete 100% waste of your money. You do not have to take my word for it. Get on a Facebook author forum and search it. Oh, okay. She said NetGalley facepalm. Yeah, exactly. So if your publisher puts your book on NetGalley, that's great. Do not spend your money to put your book on NetGalley. NetGalley reviewers are harsh. They are almost as harsh as Kirkus reviewers. And yes, and they are even harsher to indie published books, 100%. And you can get better reviews. And it's funny because, and this is another thing I've learned, and maybe we should have talked about this in our last episode about lessons we've learned. I have really learned lately that reviews are not as important as people think they are. I feel like for so many years, everybody is just watching that Amazon page, trying to see how many reviews they can get. And just, you know, can I get 50 reviews? Can I get 100 reviews? It really doesn't matter. As long as your book has a few reviews on there, like I would say maybe 5 that are decent reviews. It's not the difference between selling 5 and 100 books is how many reviews you have. It's really not. So do not pay for reviews. Do not... don't pay to put your book on NetGalley. If your publisher hasn't done it, don't pay to do it, because you're going to get bad reviews on there. And again, not just my opinion, that's the truth. So I have seen so many poor authors. I feel so bad for them. They come on the Facebook groups and say, you know, I paid $300 to put my book on NetGalley for reviews, and all the reviews are mean. And I'm like, yeah, because that's what they do. They're mean reviewers. I don't even look at my reviews on NetGalley. It's too scary.
I'm gonna say something real quick about that. I think, for as far as reviews go, I think it feels good for the author. I think there is a little bit of a social proof piece that if it has a lot of reviews, people are like, oh, like it must be good. But then if you go and read them, I often read, being really honest here, I often read indie book reviews. I don't read so much traditional because I want to make sure that it's edited, and a lot of indie books don't get edited, and it's frustrating for me because then I fall out of the story and I'm just like, there's supposed to be a comma there.
Right. Oh yeah.
And so sometimes I do that, but I mostly read reviews for products that I buy on Amazon, not even books. Like I just
My
want to make
dog
sure, like,
My dog's
Was that?
upset with me right now. Stop growling.
Oh,
Um,
but speaking of like the social proof and all of that, I think another really important thing here to talk about in terms of marketing, and it's kind of like it's like a sidebar a little bit, is cultivating relationships. So, yeah, blogging is dying, okay, but still cultivating relationships with the bloggers, if that's your thing, if you want to do that, because, or bookstagrammers, or people in person, or just readers in general, because it's that word of mouth piece, but it's also, you don't know what's going to be next. So we saw blogging in like the early 2000 teens was like, that was the thing to do. And now it's more social media. And like, what's next is like, you hear all about audio and voice, and that's like the next push for technology and stuff. But, hopefully a lot of these people are going to kind of move with the tide. And we were talking
that
about,
is a good point. That is a
going
good
with the
point because
flow.
book lovers are book lovers. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the big bloggers now will hopefully move on to whatever the next big thing is to help keep pushing books because that's what they love to do.
And there's
So
so
yeah,
many.
and relationships are so important. And I would say if you're a new author, from the second you get your book deal or the second you get your agent or whatever, from the very beginning of your career, you need to be cultivating these relationships and always treat your people well too. Because like I said, so many bloggers were very mean to me, but the bloggers that are sweet to me, or even just the ones that post a picture of my book randomly or message me and say, I like your book, I always follow them back, and I treasure them, and I will remember their names. Like, and even, it doesn't matter how many people it gets, I remember the people that are nice to my book, and I will be there for them, and I will help them out. And it's because I'm just so grateful for it. And so try to ignore the haters. But when people actually do reach out to you and are actually giving your book attention, embrace them, because it really annoys me. I've seen so many authors think that they are better than everyone else, and they're only going to follow prestigious people and not bloggers. And it's like, why wouldn't you follow the people that love your books? So embrace those people, because they will be with you for your whole career, and they will support you, and they will support your book. So when you find them, make sure you embrace them, but be careful, because some people can be so mean, and just brush that off and just move on. And
Not
it's
worth
really
it.
a matter of,
I was going to say,
it's
turn into a little bit, sorry, you go, finish. Sorry.
I was just going to say, just spend your time wisely. Don't spend hours and hours contacting people that aren't contacting you back, or that don't care. That's all I was going to say.
And I'm going to say what I was going to say in a minute, but on the other end of it, don't just do like a big blanket mass email to like every blogger that exists. If you're going to do, and we moved past bloggers, but like if bookstagrammers, social media type people, there's all kinds of different online avenues. Don't just sort of spam them. I really like to kind of use the thought or the concept, like share, never sell. And don't be spammy, that whole kind of thing. So like, don't, just kind of find the middle ground, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yes. And
but
that's what indie authors have done.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of bloggers are now hesitant to hear from, because unfortunately, if you are a traditionally published author and you're reaching out, I think people's first thought is that you're going to be indie published, because they get so many indie authors reaching out to them. And I've had that happen a few times with Sasha. I've had a couple people say, "Oh, thanks, but no thanks. I don't feature indie authors." And I was like, "This isn't an indie book. Like, what?"
Yeah.
It's like, so.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Let's say also, instead of blindly reaching out to a bunch of people online, just keep your ear to the ground. What's the phrase? I'm so bad with my phrases. Keep your ear to the ground, and watch for people requesting something, because I will see on Twitter or on Instagram, and also read people's Instagram captions, because a lot of bloggers will post a beautiful picture, but then in the caption it says, "I'm looking to read a blah 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 book. Do you have any recommendations?" or something like that, or do any authors want to participate in my blah blah blah? Let me know. So there are bloggers that are asking for stuff like that, and just keep an eye out, and when you see it, then you can approach them and say, "Hey, my book fits what you're looking for." So that you're going to get a much better reception than if you're just Googling book bloggers and emailing them all a mass email. So, pick specific ones to reach out to.
Be selective. I was going to say something else, but it slipped my mind, but I'm going to get back to my other point. I've been taking notes today, so I try not to forget. So in the author world, when you become an author, published author, it can become a little bit of like the high school cafeteria scene where, you know, like there's the cool table and there's this and that. And I want to say at Writers Uncut, you're welcome at our table, so come join us. But also, if you do have the opportunity to participate in any... my phone's dying again.
Why don't you remember the charger?
Oh no, it's full. It's fully charged. But when I've plugged it in the past, it sounds weird.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah. But anyway, what I was gonna say is, if you have an opportunity to do a group event of any sort, segueing to last weekend when you had a pizza party.
Absolutely, absolutely. Once your book comes out, oh, that's another thing. So in case you weren't here the whole time, my computer decided to update, so I can't have my list of notes that I made to prepare for this. So I've been trying to wing it. That is another thing I wanted to tell people, is that promotion does not all take place, or marketing, whichever the phrase is, does not all take place before your book comes out. Because before your book comes out, it feels so important to get as many pre-orders as possible and all this, and it is important. But I have actually found more success than excitement in these 3 months that after my book was published, because it's like release day comes and you think, oh, you know, this is it. If everyone doesn't talk about my book, then it's going to crash and burn and be dead. And it's really not. It's 3 months later, and I'm getting texts and tweets and emails every single day from people that just picked up my book. So, yeah, I did a book signing last weekend with 3 other amazing authors, Cece Hunter, Sophie Jordan. I was kind of starstruck with Sophie Jordan, and Mary Lindsay, who is a friend. So she used to make me starstruck, but now we're friends. And it was so much fun doing a signing with them because I wasn't by myself, and they have such a huge outreach. And so I really got to meet a lot of new readers that maybe showed up to see one of them, but ended up buying my book too. So absolutely, the marketing doesn't stop once your book is out. If anything, it only gets better, because then you can attend events, you can do book signings, and your book's already there. So it is important to let people be aware of your book ahead of time, but once it comes out, that's when the magic happens.
Yeah. So I'm gonna
we have a question real quick. Cassie said, how do you find local authors to connect with? Move to Houston. So I'm from Santa Fe, Texas, where there's nobody and nothing but farms and cows everywhere. And I moved to Houston a few years ago, and I went to a couple book signings. I went to a CC Hunter book sign, Joy Preble, and Becky Wallace, and realized we all lived within a few miles of each other, and we became friends, and we connected, and now I've got lunch buddies. And so I'm actually like just super lucky that I live very close to a lot of writers, especially young adult writers. So, but I would also say join an organization. I'm in RWA. If your books have any element of romance in them, they do not have to be straight romance. If they have any elements of romance in them, you can join the Romance Writers of America, and they have hundreds of chapters all over the place. So you join a local chapter. Our chapter has monthly meetings, monthly meetings, and that's how you really meet a lot of people, because those chapters, we have very well-known authors that will travel to us once a month to give a presentation at the meetings, and you really expand your network and stuff. And that's one thing I've really learned over the last year, is that networking with authors in person is so much more exciting and fun than networking on the internet. So if you live in an area where you can meet people, you should. Yeah, Cassie said you're near Boston. Oh, so if you don't have a chapter there, maybe you could start one, or ask around, because there's a lot. Cassie, your books are very romantic. She says her books aren't very romantic. Yes, they are. You can totally join RWA. Plus, there's online chapters too. We have Yarwa, which is the young adult RWA. It's fully online. We have like Facebook groups and chat forums and stuff. So, or just search around for another writers group, or search up for meetups and stuff, because there will be writers in your area, and you just have to find them. But yeah, it's extremely helpful that I live in Houston, because there's so many of us here. So, yeah. Yeah, and you would think it's because Houston's not really known for that. You would think it'd be more like New York City or California or something, which I'm sure there's a ton of authors there too, obviously in New York. But here in Houston, we have a lot of writers. So, and if you don't think there are any writers, maybe reach out, maybe go to local Facebook groups for your community and just ask. You'd be surprised, you know.
like the
So,
library is also a good place to kind of, maybe
mhm.
find some other people. Um, oh, I was gonna say, Cassie, no, R. Born. You know who that is, right?
Yes,
R.
that's
Born.
Rachel. She's
Rachel.
also in Houston.
She wrote, I didn't start writing romance, but I've added romantic elements since joining. Hi, Rachel. So yeah, I think there's other organizations too, not just RWA, but there's loads of writers
Hmm.
organizations. So just Google that and you might find one. I was going to ask you though, if you want to put your list of tips on our Facebook group so people can see them.
Yes.
And if you
Yes.
aren't a member of our Facebook group, please join us. It's facebook.com/Writers Uncut group. And we kind of just talk about books and reading
Hmm.
and life.
Yep. And you can ask any questions you have and we will answer them. Jen just said, I need to reach out more. I had no idea we had so many here in Houston. Yes. Jennifer
Yeah.
Matthews here. I'm losing count, but yeah, so there are like dozens of New York Times best-selling authors that are just young adult authors that live here. We have a ton more of other genre authors. So it's extremely exciting. Seeing or meeting people in real life that I've like only read their books in the past and thought that their books were awesome and didn't even realize they lived here. So if you're in Houston, you need to join writers groups. And yeah, there's a lot more. You don't have to just be a romance writer, but that's the one that I'm familiar with. And I found a really great sense of community there. And there is something to be said for going out to lunch with a fellow writer and just talking about everything, because you can't get that with anywhere else. You cannot talk about writing with your family or your friends because they don't get it.
Not to the same depth.
Right. And, and the more people you meet, the more people you network and talk to, the more events you're going to get invited to and the more opportunities you have and the more people are going to find out about your book. So it really is better than just sitting at home, keeping it to yourself, which honestly is my number one favorite thing to do, is to just keep to myself. But you really got to branch out there if you want to be a writer, because while all the writing happens alone by ourselves, we're not writers without readers. And you got to find the readers by getting out there and finding them. So
that's great. I love that.
Let's
end on that so my phone doesn't die.
Yes.
But if any of you have any tips or things that you've found that work really well, or bewares, like don't try, don't use this service or whatever, like they burned me, I don't know. Add that to the Facebook group too, because I think it's important for awareness and for us to like kind of ping off of each other a little bit and keep up with what's working, what's not working, what's coming, all that good stuff. So again, that's our Facebook group, Writers Uncut group. And this is also on YouTube. If you're just catching the end, the replay will be up there along with all of our other episodes where we talk and answer questions about writing, publishing, promoting, marketing, all the things.
Yep. So thanks for joining us, guys, and we will see you next Wednesday. Or maybe sooner than that. I don't know.
Maybe we still haven't figured out our evening time. If anyone has anything to say about that, DM us.
Yes. So, and I was just considering going live more often anyway.
Yeah.
Just to connect with people. Like Cassie said it earlier, that video is where things are at now, and it really is. So, I'm considering going live more frequently, but I don't know what to talk about yet. So, anyway, but thank you for joining us, and we will see you all later. And make sure you check us out on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube.
Happy writing and reading.
Bye.
Bye.